This is your host, Wendy Almond, with Experiments in Poetry, episode 20. We will be discussing the song of the Wandering Aengus performed by Donovan, and its original lyrics are a poem written by William Butler Yeats in 1899. Now, Donovan is a Scottish folk singer, sung the lyrics for the Song of the Wandering Aengus, and he released it in 1971. I have created a lyric video for his rendition of the Song of the Wandering Aengus, and I will include that in the link below. If you haven't already heard his rendition, I encourage you to go ahead and have a listen. I feel like he captured the essence and rhythm of the poem very, very well, and his voice is very nice to listen to. So, but from here on out, we will actually just be discussing Yeats and his poetry. So, born in 1865 in the county of Dublin in Ireland, he is a Nobel Prize winning poet. And I have also performed a long reading of his work as an ASMR reading. I will include the link below if you want to see. If you want to hear other poetry by Yeats. In the title, this piece is entitled "The Song of the Wandering Aengus," and you might be wondering why. Originally it was a poem, so why is he saying it's a song? And I think that his writing is very lyrical. He is writing the poem in an iambic tetramer. It's classically written. But not only that, Ireland has a long-standing tradition of song and poetry. It's a bardic tradition of storytelling through poetry set to music. Now, the music that Ireland usually uses traditionally is a horned instrument of some sort. So, living in Ireland, he was undoubtedly exposed to this kind of way, even though it had fell basically this bardic oral poetry singing tradition. There was a stronghold of it from probably about the 1100s to the 1700s in Ireland, where tradition, I think, might be having a comeback. I'm not from Ireland. Obviously, I'm American, and I'm learning about this as I'm covering this poem. But for sure, in my channel, I am interested in and songwriting and storytelling has developed over time. And much like in the Sappho versions that I had covered, and that was in ancient Greece, very much so it picks up those same traditions are picking up in a unique way in Ireland. Now, they had a really formal bardic schooling that was on par with any top university of learning, traditional things, and they would have schools just for learning how to sing and play music, and they took it very seriously. And to this day in Ireland, my understanding is that the singing tradition is still very, very strong. Yeats, growing up in Ireland, knew of a character called Angus. Now, Angus is in Irish, so Angus in Irish folklore is the god of youth, beauty, and poetry. And he, being a poet, for sure would have interest in the god of youth, beauty, and poetry. So, um, and there are many songs about Aengus and very many myths about Aengus. So, Og was a god who had supernatural powers, and he was thought to be one of the people of the goddess Danu. And these are people or um, a magical godlike race or a magical god race that lived and ruled over Ireland for thousands and thousands of years until they were defeated by other tribes. And basically, they still live on today, but they are forced to live as spirits or the fairy people that wander the burial mounds of Ireland. One of the most famous tales of Aengus is that he had a vision of a beautiful, beautiful woman, one of the most beautiful creatures that he had ever seen. And she appeared to him as a vision at night, or you could say in a dream. And he fell deeply, deeply in love with her and searched the world looking for her. And he came across her one day because she was put under a spell, and so he couldn't find her because she was put under a spell and was turned into a swan. And only one day of the year, which we would know as Halloween, was she able to transform back into her human form. And when Aengus saw her in her human form, then he wanted to marry her, and he had to gain her father's permission. And so, and her name was Kerr. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Caer, and she was another member of the Danu um, people, and they had shape shifting powers. So they can become swans, or they can become fish, or whatever. And but she had some sort of spell put on her where she couldn't transform readily. So he asked her father if he could marry her, and the father put him through a test and said, okay, when she turns back into a swan and we put her in a flock with all the other swan, if you can still love her as a swan, or how should I say it, like recognize her and feel the love, like your bond is that strong that even if she's in swan form, you can identify who she is, then I will allow you to marry her. And he was able to identify her by a necklace that she was wearing that was different than the necklaces that all the other swans were wearing. So he noticed these little details about her wear. So he noticed these little details about her, and so the father granted their permission to get married. And when they got married, Aengus then turned into a swan, and the two of them flew off together. The end. So that is the story of the Wandering Aengus. So it is a story of love and longing and hope and not giving up on finding your, true love or your destined person. A woman appearing to you in vision form can also be seen as what do they call it? They call it an alien, and they can come and either like make you fall in love with them or give you a message, a prophecy, or they can simply represent a metaphor for beauty and Ireland and the country itself. So traditionally, when someone is bringing up these types of visions, that is what they're trying to accomplish. I wanted to add that in there because, especially the woman as a metaphor for the country of Ireland itself. Um, the first verse is, I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and I cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. So here he says he went to the hazel wood because a fire was in his head. I'm thinking that he has this vision of this lovely lady that he has seen, and he is searching for her, and he goes out to the hazel wood. And in Irish folklore, the hazel wood offers immortal wisdom, and it is very much thought that when you consume it, that um, that you can see visions, and you have heightened awareness, and that hazelwood itself grows at the borderline between dimensions or between worlds, however you want to look at it. So it's very, very sacred type of wood to them. And the fact that he is going to that wood because he has a fire in his head mean that he's going there because he's on a mission, and he is looking for knowledge to obtain his mission. And he cut and peeled a hazel wand. Now, as we know, wands are associated with magic, and so maybe on his quest he's going to the source between dimensions or worlds, looking for magical wisdom to help him on his quest to find his love. He hooked a berry to a thread, and when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and I caught a silver trout. So, so it looks like he is going fishing with his wand and berry. He's using the berry as bait, and he's using his wand as a fishing rod, and it's all very magical. And what is he going to catch? And at the time where he's doing it, he says, when white moths were on a wing. So if you think of moths to a flame or a fire, it's this, when moths are on a wing, so when they're flying, or he's on his mission, right? So when the moths are on the wing, or when Angus is on his mission to um, manifest his true love using the magic of the wand and the immortal wisdom of the wood, he then catches a trout. And then in the second verse, when I laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame. Again, I was saying the moth, when it's on its wing, it's attracted to that fire, that light source. And so he says, when moth-like stars are flickering out, again, stars, fire, light. Love has that fire, that passion, that light. And he caught his trout and he took it to go light a fire or a flame. And then he heard a rustling on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and then ran and faded through the brightening air. Again, you see brightening air, again, light. He's a moth, he's attracted. He has manifested a glimmering girl who called him by his name. He has caught his love, and the trout had turned into a girl. So this is a reference to Kerr, except here, instead of Kerr being a swan, she is, like I said, she is a shapeshifter. So here she is a trout, and he found her, and he forced her to shapeshift back into her human form. But then she got afraid and she ran away. And so, though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands and walk among long dappled grass and pluck till time and times are done. So basically, now that he changed her into human form and then she ran away, he is searching and searching and searching for her. And he is weary of wandering around looking for her, but he's not going to stop. He's going to keep going until he figures out where she has gone because, he, wants to make her his, and he wants to just walk with her and be with her forever and ever, as it says, walk among the dappled grass until time and times are done. So forever and ever. He's plucking apples, apples of the moon and apples of the sun. And his love, when she turned into human form, had apple blossoms in her hair. And the apple in Irish tradition represents healing and rebirth. So when he changed her, or when he caught her and brought her out of the water, she was turned into human form and she had apple blossoms in her hair, possibly rebirthing her into her human form. And he is saying, I will pluck apples at night and apples during the day. I will pluck the apples from time and times, or until time and times are done. So he will keep curing her and turning her back so she can remain in human form, so he could spend time with her and be with her for all of times and forever. Yeats had said in the past that he thinks of the sun and the moon as the moon being the bride and the sun being the bridegroom, and that it's the masculine and the feminine version. So if he is Aengus, he's the god of beauty and poetry and youth. He's the sun, and she is his counterpart, the moon. This has another layer to it, and that would be that Yeats himself possibly wrote this for an unrequited lover of his, fell in love with a woman by the name of Maud Gonne, and she was a Irish revolutionary whom he met in 1889, and he met her right before he had written this poem. So upon reading this poem, one has to wonder if this actually was inspired by his love for Maud. Because there are enough, it's not a straight up retelling of this story or the myth of Aengus, right? Because his lover is a trout, and when she turns into human form, she runs away from him, and he is constantly searching and searching for her. And you don't really know at the end if he's going to find her. You just know what his hope and his longing is for her. Whereas in the traditional telling of the myth of Aengus, is that the woman comes to him as a vision, and she does love him, but she's trapped in the swan form, and he has to find her, and and then they do live together forever, and they do marry. So there's enough difference there that one has to wonder, did he change it for a personal touch? And remember how I said that sometimes the fairy vision can represent Ireland itself and the beauty of the land and the culture itself, that female vision. And being that Maud was an Irish revolutionary, it could very who obviously loved her country and the traditions and the language, that it those two concepts seem to marry there. This bardic singing of poetry, storytelling culture was very strong, and they wrote and sang in Gaelic. And in the 1600s, the English banned the speaking of Gaelic, and hence the shutdown of the universities that taught the bardic tradition. And so by the 1700s, or any formal teaching of the Bardic tradition or the Gaelic language. And everybody had met informally. And there, the reason why I'm telling you this is because there were many, this informal gathering and reciting and singing of poetry had influenced, had carried on, but in an informal way. And my understanding is that until this day in Ireland, they still have a singing, oral storytelling tradition, and I believe it's pronounced Shannons. And this is a public singing and of a story, and typically it's performed in bars, and it's not done formally at all. It's not like, oh, I'm going to the pub and Louis so and so is going to be performing a Shannon tonight, and I'm going to go see it. Right? It's more like Jane, Sally, Joe, you know, Daniel, everybody in the town is just doing their normal day, and they go to the pub as part of their normal day. They are not professionally trained singers. They are not professional poets by any means, but they just go out as part of their culture, and they're hanging out. And when they go to the bar, at some point in the night, spontaneously, a random person might start singing their own personal piece or a very popular, orally passed down Shannon. Shannon. And so what happens is one person sang it maybe 500 years ago, and they taught it to everybody. And then to this day, people will break out in these random performances. And you can also, my understanding is that once it starts, then it should be carried on. So if I start and I sing a Shannon, then when I'm done, first of all, when you start performing your poetry piece, everybody respects that. They quiet down and they put their attention to you, and just drink and listen to your performance. And then when you are done, it is pretty much, I don't know if this is true or not, expected that everybody who is present will eventually participate and sing a piece of poetry. So it sounds pretty amazing. I would really like to witness that one day. So why am I telling you this? Well, number one, to say that the Bardic tradition is still very much alive in Ireland, and how it's related to this piece is that there are songs that are sung in traditional Gaelic that are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And I want to play you a little piece of one, and no doubt Maud and William Yeats have heard this sung at one point in their lifetime. This piece that I'm going to play a part of was made, believed to be first composed in the 1700s. Now, the important thing about this piece is that Gaelic has officially been banned, and you are spontaneously, without any formal training or anything, you're just memorizing these pieces as you kind of hear them, and you're singing them real quick, and then you're right, because you're not supposed to be singing them, but yet you're still taking every opportunity to learn them and sing them and pass them on. So this piece that I want to play for you is called On Gambain Ghael Ban. And this is a story about a guy who has a vision of a woman who is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. And she runs away. And he spends his whole entire life looking and searching for this woman. It sounds very similar to the tale or the mythology of Aengus. And and it probably is based on that. And like I said, it is, I have no doubts in my mind that this was sung in Ireland, still to this day, and very much at the time when Yeats and Maud had met each other. So I do believe this might have been an inspiration for the poem as well. And not only that, um, I think the reason why I took the time to kind of tell you about, that the song was written in a time probably within 50 to 100 years of the Bard's schools being shut down and the banning of speaking and singing in Gaelic, although people illicitly did still do it. And I really wanted to hammer in that that's when the song was written, because remember, I said that a woman, a vision of a beautiful woman, sometimes when, so at the same time that their language was banned, their religion, Catholicism, was also banned, and their language of Gaelic. And so they had to be Protestant and they had to be English speaking. And this song is about the beautiful woman who ran away, who can't be found. The woman very much can be a metaphor for Ireland and her culture and her language and her religion, who is not present at the time, but who they are all searching for and hoping that they can find again. Um, and I can't really pronounce her name. I will put a link to her full rendition below. I'll just refer to her as Nell, and this is a traditional Sean Nos, and this one is called on Gambain Ghael Ban, and I believe it to be something that perhaps Yeats and Maud listened to together, and it represents looking for that Ireland that was lost when they banned their culture. Of course, it's all hidden in the fact that it's talking as if it's a love story between a man and a woman, when it's really a love story between a people and their culture and nation. So, so here's to the song of the Wandering Aengus, and thank you for watching and learning the story behind it. This poem is really for all those things loved and lost, and for the longing and the hope to be reunited again. Thank you. Bye bye.